opportunity to visit with a number of you this evening and some new friends and people who didn't know much about this campaign until today, and others who've heard about it in the last day or two. I had a conversation with the lady outside just a few minutes ago who heard me actually on one of the very first radio interviews that I did with a guy named Sergio Sanchez down in the valley. She lives here in Fort Worth. She's born and raised in San Antonio. She happened to be on vacation in South Padre, and she said, look this person up. She's got 500 friends on Facebook following her. There is something happening in this country, and there is something happening in Texas. For such a time as this, I stand before you to fight to be the governor of the state of Texas. That was not even on the radar anywhere 6 months ago. But we had better take a stand here, and we better fight. We've got an opportunity to do that. I want to talk to you a little bit about who I am, what my core beliefs are. I see a lot of Medina shirts out there tonight, so I know a number of you have already made a commitment, and for that I appreciate it. I have said repeatedly that whether or not we win this race is really not up to me, it's up to you. And it is completely dependent on how hard you're going to work between now and March 2nd of 2010. Going backwards. We've got less than 170 days to make this happen. We are finding favor in the media. I know that's hard for all of us to believe, but we are finding favor in the media, and we're going to take that favor as long as it's coming our direction and be grateful for it. I am a registered nurse. I was born and raised in Beeville, Texas. My father worked for the telephone company. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. I lived on a 4-acre farm, and I often say that we bought mayonnaise, mustard, ketchup, and hot dogs at the grocery store, and that was about it. Everything else that we fed our family of 4 was raised on that farm. I milked a cow every day of my life. My mother had about 100 chickens, and for those of you that know anything about chickens, they lay 1 egg a day. So we had 100 eggs a day at the Parker house, and Mama sold those in town. She drove into town once a week and she sold eggs, and that's how she made extra money. In fact, that's how she bought the first television set that we had in our house, and I think I was in the 3rd grade before we got that. I know the value of hard work. My husband was born and raised in Beeville as well. We lived pretty different lifestyles. His father had a massive stroke when he was 2 years old, and Noe pretty much grew up in government housing. He was a good kid. He quarterbacked on the football team and got out of high school and went to work. And we married in 1982, just after I finished junior college, and I went on to nursing school, came home and had 2 children. We've got a 24-year-old daughter who married in April, and a 20-year-old son who is a junior at Texas A&M University. Now and I've been married 27, he does the math, 27 years this year. Thank you. We moved to Wharton, Texas in 1989 with a 5-year-old daughter and a 6-month-old son. Is that right? 89? I have worked as a registered nurse our whole marriage. I've done a lot of the traditional nursing things, hospitals, nursing homes, home health agencies. I pretty early in our marriage read an article in a nursing journal talking about the business of healthcare and how nurses were pretty much oblivious to that. All we wanted to do was be at the bedside, and we didn't care about the cost of operating that business. Hospital administrator was saying he needed nurses that had business degrees, and that kind of planted a seed for me, and it took me 15 years, I guess, before I went back to college and got that business degree. But that's kind of been my niche. I like to do operations. In the early 1990s, a pastor invited me to attend my first political convention, and the bid was set for me politically at that point in my life. I saw some things happen in that convention that I was just shocked to my core. The deacons in my church voted to remove the pro-life plank of the Republican Party platform in my county. And for those of you that graduated high school around 1980 like I did, you remember the Ron Reagan Revolution, and you know that he championed that, and that was the thing that gave us a powerful Republican Party, and I just thought everybody Republican was pro-life. And I understand now that there's differences there, and I understand today that we've got a bigger tent than that, and I welcome people who disagree with me on that issue into this platform, but that was the thing for me that set my course politically. I began working and suddenly realized that there were a lot of things going on in my community and in my state and certainly in Washington, D.C. that weren't consistent with those values that I'd grown up with this constitutional republic. And so I've been working hard, and because I'm that operations person, I don't know how many of you realize that there's, in government accounting, there's something that your city files and your county files and your state files called the Consolidated Annual Financial Report. And I had the opportunity, because I like that stuff, to get in and study my county's Consolidated Annual Financial Report. And in a little rural county in Texas, a county that's not really that unlike most of the counties in Texas, no population growth, ag-based economy, 11% a year spending increases. And I about choked, because my county commissioners were telling me that they were conservative and they were wisely spending my money. So I've been there. So that was kind of the first thing I started doing when I got tapped on the shoulder and said, hey, would you run for governor? I said, well, let's figure out where we are in Texas. We've been lied to in Texas about the fact that we have a balanced budget. I'm not going to hold the governor completely accountable for the spending in Texas, because I know we've got a legislature that has a lot to do with that, but the governor's the chief executive. And if you're a for-profit company, your chief executive has a duty to give an accurate annual report to the shareholders. And our governor has a duty to give an accurate annual report to the people of Texas. And when they walk around and say, we've got a balanced budget, we're doing better than every other state, and you don't need to worry, you're a little bit confused. Because the gas prices are doing funny things. Your neighbors are losing their jobs. Every time you turn on the nightly news, something crazy is going on with the dollar. But your governor's telling you everything's okay. And when what you know and what you're being told don't match, it creates kind of a psychosis and a confusion for you. So I'm here tonight to clear the air and to let you know that Texas has the 13th largest economy in the country. If we will restore those principles of a constitutional republic, of little government and lots of freedom, then this economy will not have a problem. But here's where we are today. We think we have a balanced budget when in fact our debt in Texas, and you're going to vote on some more of that debt in November. We've got bond elections coming up. A bond is a debt. Went from $12 billion in 2000 to $31 billion at the end of August of last year, August 2008. So we've nearly tripled our debt in Texas. We have in our Constitution a measure to prevent us from incurring too much debt. It's called a constitutional debt service ceiling of 5%. And what that means basically is our debt payment, our credit card payments cannot exceed more than 5% of our general revenue, more than 5% of our income as a state.